In Jesus' name, amen. Thankful for the time that we get tonight. And I'm going to ask us to take our Bible. We're going to open to Proverbs, if you would. Matthew chapter number 5. Let's start there. Matthew 5, then put a finger in Genesis 26. We're going to kind of toggle a little bit around, but Genesis 26, then Matthew 5 is where we're going to launch from. As you're turning there, I'll mention this. In praying for Helen and wanting to see her back, she does have that doctor's appointment tomorrow, and by way of, if we could be a help as a church family, she mentioned trying to get a ride to the doctor tomorrow. The appointment's at 2:30, probably leaving around 2 o'clock, but she's in need of transportation where she can get in and out of the vehicle without having to climb up too high or get down too low. And if we could help with that, or if there's somebody that may have a time tomorrow that would be able to drive and help her, if you could let me know maybe after the service, that'd be a big blessing in just caring for her. Matthew chapter number 5, we'll launch from here. One simple verse. The subject tonight, a little unusual, the message or the title of the lesson, the shovel or the sword. The shovel or the sword. And you'll see the correlation here in just a moment as we develop. I was going to bring in a shovel and a sword tonight, and I thought with all the dress up, somebody would probably grab these things and hurt somebody. But a shovel, I don't know about you, but when I think about a shovel, the first thing I think about is work. One of the things my mom was good at in raising two over-energetic boys and my sister didn't deal with this much, but especially my brother and I, we got in trouble. One of the things that we would often have to do is go outside and dig things up with a shovel. And we used the hoe, used a shovel, pulled weeds, all these types of things. And it was not uncommon, just almost like a military drill sergeant, go dig a hole. All right, Mom, 30 minutes later, we come back, go fill it up. And go dig another hole. And we lived in an area with rocks and everything. You couldn't dig much deeper than 6-8 inches without hitting some real serious hard things. And we liked using shovels for making messes, but truly, a shovel will do a lot of work. A sword, on the other hand, if you think about a sword, that could do some damage. That's made to really hurt somebody. It could wound somebody, it could kill somebody. As a kid, a sword seemed like a lot of fun. Seems like I want to just swing that thing around, and the problem is it's dangerous, isn't it? And we're going to compare and contrast the idea tonight of relationships and solving conflicts. In life, every one of us will deal with conflicts. And most of the time, these conflicts are brought on by us. Okay, every person tonight, whether a husband or wife, a mom and children, a dad and his children, siblings together, co-workers, friends, church members, relationships, if we don't learn to deal with conflict, we don't have that relationship very long. For any couple here, if you've been married for more than a day, you've had to deal with conflict, no doubt. For every parent, you've dealt with conflict. Now, the two tools that we could deal with conflict tonight is a shovel or a sword. In other words, one deals with work, one deals with attack. How are we going to respond? We'll see this unfold in God's Word. The key verse tonight, Matthew chapter 5 and verse number 9. Jesus says these words, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. As Christians, we should strive to make peace. Would you agree with that? We should strive for peace. Peace with ourselves. Okay, that's a critical issue. Peace with our families. Peace with our community. Peace with God. And peace should be part of the Christian life. This is something as we think about Christmas, it's a season that's supposed to bring peace. Yet a lot of times we come into the holiday hustle and bustle in this Christmas season and we find ourselves in everything, and dad's thinking about time off work and football or basketball, or let's just relax, and mom's yelling at dad, and kids are out of school, and now we just want presents, and parents are yelling at kids and kids at parents. I didn't get what I wanted, and how come she got that and I didn't? And boy, instead of peace, we end up with chaos. Instead of peace with friends and relationships and family, we get fighting and bickering. We gather around a table and have a meal together, Thanksgiving or Christmas and these types of things. And instead of just enjoying one another, we turn toward picking at each other. And sometimes it's, Aunt Susan and Cousin Joe and somebody who, we haven't seen since last year, and we want to bring up all their mistakes from before, and we ask them the probing questions that we know we're going to elicit negative responses, and we don't have peace. Yet we should strive for peace. Every on, you could draw the sword, or we can make peace. Every relationship is subject to working if at least one person is willing to be the peacemaker. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Every relationship can work if at least one person is willing to be the peacemaker. But we have to recognize the cost of fighting. To make our point at the cost of losing a relationship. We win a battle, but we lose a war. We get our way, but the cost is now we're left alone. The Bible tells us in Romans 12, verse 18, if it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. With that in mind, go back, if you would, to Genesis in chapter number 26. Genesis 26. I'm going to read several verses here in the life of Isaac, and we're going to try to rush through as much as we can with this lesson. If we don't finish it completely, we'll pick it up after Christmas Eve, and that'll be okay if we don't get through every bit of it. I think this is an important topic for us tonight. Genesis 26, we come to the story of Isaac, who is, of course, Abraham, then Isaac, Jacob. Isaac is in a position where either he is going to make peace or he is going to pick up the sword and start fighting. And I want us to take note, if you would, in verse number... Skip down. Let's go into verse number 17, if you would. Verse number 17. And we're going to back up. Back up to verse number 13. This is a good place. And the man waxed great. This is talking about Isaac, verse number 13. And the man waxed great and went forward and grew until he became very great. For he had possessions of flocks and possessions of herds and great store of servants, and Philistines envied him. For all the wells which his father's servants had digged in the days of Abraham his father, the Philistines had stopped them and filled them with earth. And Abimelech said unto Isaac, Go from us, for thou art much mightier than we. So here's what happened in Isaac's life. He went out, and God blessed him. He became great. He had all this stuff. And the Philistines, the enemy, the people who's living in the same land, began to envy Isaac, and they were upset with him because he had a lot of stuff. And they filled his wells up. Now, if you're familiar with the customs of ancient days, if you don't have a well, you don't live very long. That's where the water came from. That's where nourishment came from. That's take care of the flocks and the herds and the sheep, and let alone watering yourself and drinking and cooking and all the things you need to survive. You got to have a well. Isaac had many wells that Abraham had dug, but the Philistines filled them up. Now, how would you respond if your wells were filled up by the enemy? Now, Isaac was a great person. He had a lot of stuff. He had a lot of servants. He could have taken the arms. He could have drawn the sword and said, we're going to battle. We're going to win. This is our land. No one's taking it from us. But Isaac did not do that. What we'll find in a moment is what Isaac did is he grabbed the shovel and he dug another well. The Philistines came and filled that one up. He dug another well. The Philistines came and filled that one up. And he dug another well. And he kept digging until there was peace. Tonight, in the life of Isaac, I want to give just 5 simple steps to peace. 5 steps. The first step starts with envy. Envy. Now, this is not the peace. This is what happens before we get there. Envy starts it out. We read in verse number 12 down through 15 what happened here with Isaac waxing great. They filled the wells up with earth. What we learn is envy is the enemy of peace. The Philistines, the Bible tells us in Genesis 26, the Philistines were envious of what he had. And because he had something that they wanted, and they were envious of him, there was no peace. How many of us have ever found ourselves in a situation, in a relationship, if there's envy present, there is no peace? Okay, what happens usually, especially young in life, it happens with siblings. Brother, sister, they get something a little bit bigger, a little bit better, a little bit newer. They get one more. They get something, and it's all of a sudden, well, why don't I get that? How come theirs is better than mine? How come they got the red one and I got the blue one? And sometimes it's silly. But even from the childlike stages, we find envy starts separate even a husband and wife. Envy will separate children from parents. Envy will separate church members. Envy is a separator, a divider of peace. And Isaac had something that his father had built. The people now in the land became jealous of what he had. This created strife. Now, sometimes conflict and friction comes not as a result of anything we've done, but as a result of how we get perceived. Okay, Isaac, I don't think he was out trying just to flaunt what he had. In fact, he didn't dig these wells. Abraham did. He didn't necessarily create all the wealth. It came from Abraham, who God blessed, and God blessed Isaac. But the people now, the Philistines, perceived him as, that's the rich man. That's the guy that has it all. That's the guy with all the wells. That's the guy with all the herds. That's the guy with all the servants. And they tried to take advantage of what he had. They tried to destroy him. Again, sometimes the way people perceive us, it's not always fair. I don't know in this room, I don't look out and see, or perceive anyway, millionaires and the rich and famous in the room. If you are, we'd like to talk to you after the service. But I don't perceive that. But the truth is, somebody could just as easily look at anyone here and say, well, they've got something I don't, or they have it better than I do, or I'm envious of the way that they live, and this. And what happens is a friction starts usually based on somebody else's behalf. So 2 people here, the Philistines and Isaac. Who's the one that had a problem? The Philistines did. They looked to him and said, well, you've got something that's not fair. We want what you've got. But who had to solve the problem? Isaac did. This is what Christianity is all about. It's not about, well, they've got the problem, they figure it out, they get over it. The Philistines had the problem, but Isaac's the one that learned to deal with it. And what we read here is that Isaac, even though he was the one wronged, was the one who had to fix the problem. And envy is kind of the root of how things begin to get separated. Envy is a quick road to division and strife. We must be careful of what we start looking at that can lead to envy in our own life. Unhappiness comes when you want something you can't have. Why I think it's a dangerous time of year right now, because one of the most oft asked questions, especially to young people, is what do you want for Christmas? What do you want? Well, ask me what I want enough, my wants could start building pretty good. I mean, they can go off the charts pretty quick. What do I want? Anything? And what happens is pretty soon I began looking, well, what do I want? Well, I don't know unless I look. Oh, here's a magazine, or here's a store, go down the aisles and start looking, or here's go through Amazon and just put anything in the cart and make your wish list. I caution all of us, not just at Christmas time, but throughout our lives, be very careful about putting something in front of the eyes that is not attainable. If the wallet can't pay for it, don't look at it. No sense of going down to the new car dealership if I've got the budget for, the Craigslist used thing on the side of the road. Nothing wrong with having a new car. But if it's beyond what I can afford, what I can really realistically do, all it's going to do is cause me to want something I can't have. Discontentment arises seeing others enjoy something you think that you deserve. Somebody else has it. All of a sudden we get the complex. Not fair. I work just as much as they do. I'm just, why should they get it and I can't? And pretty soon we start losing the battle of envy. Disappointment comes when we think that I should have it just because someone else does. And then here's another simple thought about envy is we don't want to flaunt what we have, trying to strive to impress other people. No reason to, quote, show off just to be impressive. If you have to wear the right thing to make somebody else feel good about you, probably not the person you got to impress. I've got to drive the right car, have the right food, shop at the right stores just to impress somebody else. Am I doing it for the right reasons? So here we talk about making relationships work. Envy is one of these enemies, and Isaac learned very quickly that envy started the friction, but it moved on, and it moved to this word, contention. Contention. Look with me in Genesis 26 at verse number 20. Genesis 26, verse 20. And the herdmen of Gerar did strive with Isaac's herdmen, saying, the water is ours. And he called the name of the well Esek, because they strove with him. Okay, this word contention comes from the word that we find in this verse, Esek. Esek, we read here in Genesis 26, verse number 20, it means contention. So what happens is envy starts the friction, starts the separating. It filled up the wells that Abraham had dug, Isaac was enjoying. Rather than start fighting, Isaac went and dug new wells. But now we find another strife going on. The herdmen here strove with Isaac's herdmen. One said the water's ours. One said, no, it's ours. And they called the name Esek, meaning contention. Contention is the result of pride. Proverbs chapter 13, verse number 10 says it this way. Only by pride cometh contention, but with the well-advised is wisdom. Contention comes because of pride. The Bible tells us that only by pride comes contention. So what we learn is that contention is the underlying tone that creates discomfort in relationships, and usually it manifests itself in subtle manner. Usually it comes in very small, very covert, in a contentious spirit. In marriages, it's the silent glare between spouses. It's not saying anything, but we're just going to look. There's a contentious spirit. Sometimes the cold shoulder between friends. It's the gruff exchange of words at work. It's the competitive arguing between siblings. And this contention, left unchecked, begins to build. It's the herdman. It's my water. No, it's my water. It's mine. It's mine. And we start fighting over it because, again, pride because of envy. And sometimes our effort for peace results in contention from other people. They don't believe that you're being sincere. They're still driven by their own self-serving factors of pride. What we learn is, again, two ways to solve conflict. Draw the sword, start fighting. Who wins? Who's the strongest? Or grab the shovel and say, you say it's your water, I say it's my water. I'll just go dig another well. You take it and I'll move on. I know it's not fair, and I know it seems like that's a lot of work, and it is. Digging wells is not easy. Digging wells takes time, takes work, takes energy. And when someone tries to come take it from you, to walk away and go dig another one, talk about being a bigger person. But that's exactly what Isaac did here in order to curb the contention. Someone needs to learn to dig the wells. Blessed are the peacemakers. We could say it this way, blessed are the well diggers. Now, I wonder, as Christians tonight, who's willing to say, I'll just dig a well. I know that this person's against me. I know this friend is kind of contentious. I know that this family member, I know that this relationship, I know there's contention, but somebody needs to dig the well. I can sit on the battlefield with swords in hand. All that's going to do is mean someone's getting hurt. Or I can lay down the arms and go dig another well. Pick up with me, if you would, the next word that we come to after contention is hatred. Hatred. Keep reading here in verse number 21 of Genesis 26. After they strove, after the contention, after Esek, it says, and they digged another well and strove for that also. And he called the name of it Sitnah. Sitnah. This word Sitnah means hatred. Hatred. So what happened is when Isaac put extra work in to make peace, there was still strife. There was still hatred. Again, in this story, has he done anything wrong yet? He was living over here, enjoying what Abraham, his father, had earned, what Abraham had dug for him. He was living on the land. Philistines grew envious. They filled the wells up. Isaac says, well, I guess we'll just go dig new wells. Goes and digs new ones. The herdmen now of the other people start saying, this is our water. No, it's our water. Now they're contentious over it. Okay, we'll go dig more wells. He went and dug more. And now there's still contention. And in fact, now they hate Isaac. And the hatred begins to build and begins to manifest itself. And perhaps you can understand how relationships sometimes draw friction. Isaac didn't do anything. I've heard this from many people often in talking about, well, what do I do in my marriage? And what do I do with my siblings? And what do I do with my boss at work? I understand it's not your fault. They're probably the ones with the problem. They may be the ones that hate you. So either draw the sword and start fighting. Again, the only way to end that, somebody dies. Or grab the shovel, just go dig new wells. Let them win. Not fun, but isn't that exactly what Jesus has done? Isn't that exactly how he handled things? When people strove and when they fought and when they argued, we find that hatred will either stop us or cause us to overcome it. Jesus was hated himself, but he still came to save. We know that we may even be hated by people we love. We can't allow hatred to stop us from making peace. The world may hate Christians for what we stand for and what we believe in, but we can't allow hatred to stop us. We can't allow hatred to make us lose sight of what we're doing and then turn around and try to attack someone. Either we're going to allow hatred to stop us and stop the well, or we'll just go dig another one. Understand, if water is the goal, fighting over the well doesn't solve the goal. Digging the well solves the goal. The verse that comes to mind here in Proverbs chapter 10, verse number 12, hatred stirreth up strifes, but love covereth a multitude, or covereth all sins. Hatred stirreth up strifes. If there's hatred going on, what happens then? More strife comes. And when strife comes, contention comes. Contention comes because of pride. And what we learn is this is a vicious cycle of friction. The answer, here's the next word, and this is where peace comes, the word room. Room. Look with me as we keep reading in Genesis 26. Genesis 26 and verse number 22. And he, that's Isaac, removed from thence where the hatred was, and digged another well. And for that they strove not. And he called the name of it Rehoboth. And he said, For now the Lord hath made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land. The word Rehoboth there, speaking of room. There's room enough. I finally dug a well. I can have water. Yeah, I dug all those wells, but now you can have water too. And if the goal is water, then the solution is more wells. It's not about who controls them, but who's going to dig them. If over here the Philistines were upset, they stop up the wells. I could fight the Philistines, but I still need water. I may as well just dig some new wells. If the herdmen are fighting over here, I can fight with them, or I can just dig some new wells. If there's hatred stirring up here, I could fight with them, or I can get the shovel and just dig new wells. So here's what Isaac did. Now there's room. This was the goal for Isaac. He wanted a well with peace. He finally found it. And when effort is made for peace, we can understand this. The result is room enough for all. The desire of all Christians is that we live at peace. The Bible tells us again, Romans chapter 12, verse number 18, if it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. I like how this verse starts, if it's possible. Is peace always possible? In some cases, some will keep fighting. But if it's possible, which means I need to make every effort possible. If it's possible, keep digging the wells. As much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. We know the ability to have room, the ability to have peace comes from the agony of digging more wells. In other words, we need to learn to take the high road. Do the work in the relationships. Put in the extra effort. Do the things that others don't want to do. We can find peace through whatever strife there may be. If it's possible, live peaceably with all men. The last word we come to is this word, oath. An oath or a promise. For sake of time, I won't read through all of the verses. But what happened is now Isaac made peace with the people of the land. They made an oath. They made a promise one to another. And let's look at verse, if you would, number 32 in Proverbs 26. Verse 32. The Bible says, And it came to pass the same day that Isaac's servants came and told him concerning the well which they had digged, and said unto him, We have found water. And he called it Sheba. Therefore the name of the city is Beersheba unto this day. That word Sheba means an oath or a promise. We found water, and here what happened in the storyline is Isaac makes an oath with the people of the land. He says, we'll use this water, you use that water. We'll live peaceably with you, you live peaceably with us. And God, just as much as he made an oath with Isaac, Isaac made an oath with the people. God said, I'll take care of you, Isaac. Isaac told the people, I'll leave you alone. Here's what we learn. God has already made a promise with you and I. Has not God made the promise, I will forgive you, I will love you, I will accept you, I will do all it takes to redeem you? So then shouldn't I in turn look at the people that I think it's worth fighting for, fighting over, fighting with, say, I can forgive you too? You can argue with me, but it's not worth my time. I forgive you. I could fight with you, but it's not worth my time. I'll make a promise. Because God's forgiven me, I'll forgive you. Because God's loved me, I'll love you. Because God's made a promise to me, I'll make a promise to you. And we find in any relationship, when we put it through the eyes of what has God done for me, I should do to someone else, it really kind of takes the need for the sword out. It says, I better pick up the shovel. If God treated me the way I treat other people, woe is me. But should not I treat others the way God has treated me? And that's what we learn in this story, in this comparison. And we'll close with this. We'll just kind of rapidly go through several slides here that kind of show a comparison between the shovel and the sword. The first one here, we find the shovel requires work, but the sword comes natural. Anytime relationships begin to struggle, if I want to dig in and dig through and work through it, I can find peace, but it does take work. Oh, but picking up the sword and fighting, it's just so natural. Somebody hurts me, I hurt them back. Somebody says, that's my water, it's my water. Slash, slash, stab, stab. I can pull the sword. It's so easy. But the shovel takes work. I find next that the shovel seeks restoration, and that's greater than the sword that seeks revenge. The shovel says, I want to make it better. I just want peace. Peace in my home, and peace in my church, and peace at work, and peace with people. If it's possible, live peaceably with all men. I want peace. That's what restoration is. The sword says, you did me wrong. Watch this. I'll do you wrong. You stabbed me in the back. Oh, you've seen nothing yet. I'll get you. The sword seeks revenge. We find the shovel requires humility, but the sword requires pride. In order for somebody to do you wrong in a relationship, in order for you to say, I'll just go make peace, I'll go dig another well, I'll take the brunt end of it, it really is a sign of humility. Because pride says, no one's going to get the best of me. Nobody's going to walk all over me. No one's going to treat me that way. Pride is quick to draw the sword. We find this, that the shovel refreshes people, but the sword repels people. The shovel, at the end of the shovel is refreshing water. At the end of the shovel is a new well. But at the end of the sword is a tip that is sharp and ready to stab. We find that the shovel rejuvenates growth, but the sword restricts growth. At the end of the shovel, we grow better crops. At the end of the sword, we cut down what's grown. We understand that one gives growth, one stops growth. The shovel congregates. The sword isolates. The shovel says, I've dug a new well. Let's all gather around. There's room for everybody. I've got water here. I've got something refreshing. People want to be around it. It's an oasis. But the sword, I'm all by myself. No one can get close. I'm staving everybody off. You've hurt me too badly. Stay away. The shovel solves long-term problems. The sword solves short-term problems. One goes to work, and it takes a long time to see the result of it. But the end result is that well's around for a long time, and it waters a lot of people. The sword is quick. It's reactionary. Short-term problem, someone's taken my water, but it doesn't really help the long-term picture. It doesn't unclog the wells. Understand, the last one here, the shovel takes pleasure in serving. The sword takes pleasure in winning. In every relationship, I can come out as the sword champion and say, I've won. That argument with my wife, I won. That conflict with my children, I won. And I could take great joy in winning. Or I can say, how can I serve? How do I help? Jesus came to this earth not to fight back. He could have. Not to have the upper hand. He deserved it. But to serve those who wronged him so dearly. And as we come into this Christmas season, as we kind of close out our year as families and relationships, take inventory of where we're at, may we find ourselves in any conflict, in any relationship. How do I find peace? The Bible tells us in Psalm 119, great peace have they which love thy law, and nothing shall offend them. We're easily offended tonight. We're easily offended because someone's stopping my wells, or they've taken something of mine, or they've got something better than. If I'm offended, it's not a them problem. That's a me problem. I'm the one to blame. Isaac here, he did nothing wrong, but he was attacked. He was blameless, but his wells were stopped up. What do you do?